Chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. If he stays offside, Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Sells.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of TorquayTalk, a very special episode because we've got two very special guests, Michael and Mark. Thank you for joining us this week.
Pleasure.
Great to be here.
Yes, so and also, of course, Clive.
Good evening.
Chris.
Evening all.
And Tom.
Good
nice
evening.
bucket hat to even it up. And so there we are. So yeah, so we'll go straight into it. Obviously, what has been a very interesting few months, all of us, all of Torquay United, all of the fans, to be going into pre-season and have a football club. It just means obviously a lot to all of us, and we're very excited for the new season. But going into obviously an introduction about both of you. We'll start with Michael. There's no favoritism, but the start is on my left. Just a bit about kind of your sort of upbringing with Torquay United, going from sort of a fan and then to being a chairman, and what's that like?
Well, it's been quite the journey. But like many of us, kind of felt like I've grown up on the terraces of Torquay. My granddad used to bring me, and we used to stand in the enclosure under what was the old grandstand, now Bristow's. And my dad worked at Frank Mann, the grocer wholesaler, and used to bring a vegetable box for me to stand on, and used to stand between the two dugouts. And as you grow up, I kind of moved over to the pop side, and then I became a teenager. I stood in a mini stand. So I've done the whole sort of tour of the ground through the years. And got to Torquay, and I felt like it's been in my blood. I used to get taken to Torquay because Dad was the stadium announcer, worked with Pete Wiley up in the box for must have been 15, 20 years, as long as I can remember growing up. And like many of us, I left the Bay sort of my first job, obviously you probably know this, was at the Herald Express, and so often worked at Playmore as well, doing the Dave Thomas used to do the football stuff, and I used to do the non-football stuff, particularly when we had big games, not least the famous Bryn game through Alexander in 1987. And I remember working late into the night, getting the paper ready for Monday, and that first of many great escapes. But no, Torquay, lifelong fan.
Amazing.
I spent 16 years in Asia, and people in Hong Kong thought I was crazy where I was living, but we used to fly home for big games.
Wow.
And would take a Friday night flight, land at crack of dawn Saturday, pack it down to Playmore, then get back to Heathrow for the evening flight, and then back. So I would leave work on Friday, turn up for work on Monday morning, having been to Playmore and back for some of the big games and the old Wembley final, etc. So
before you came on, I was actually complaining to Clive about this season, about the hour-and-a-half drive back after Western-super-Mare. But I think you've kind of made that a bit into context now. But yeah, and going into Mark, same with you. What's your...
Yeah, so basically we moved down to the southwest in 1983, and I think the first game that I went was in the Poplar Stand in 85, where we played Exeter. My real love for Torquay came in 87, I think it was, where we played Tottenham, and we got the 1-0 at Playmore. And then since then, all my nephews are season ticket holders at Torquay United. I've spent times not being thrown out, but in the family stand and going in the goals nest, having a lot of beer in there and watching the games. And then second half, we're looking through the window on the second half, hoping Torquay would score and get a late goal. Done a few away games. It's been good fun. Just can't believe the amount of fans that go away on the away games. Been to all the playoff finals, so much disappointment, but then I'm an England supporter as well. So
for it.
But I'm also a massive sports lover. So I used to travel up and see Liverpool in games as well. I love rugby, I love cricket, but now my sights are set purely on Torquay, and I've probably got more of an ambitious strapline really with what I expect from Torquay this season and the team. You know, our first goal for me and Michael was to stop the leaking of money out the club. The second goal was to be competitive on the pitch. And then, obviously, as we said in our chairman's meetings, is to make it fun and make it a nice place to come on a Saturday. And I think we can accomplish all those goals. I don't think we need to sacrifice success. The club's here now, and I know we've come a long way, but I want this club in the Football League. It's not a National League South club. It has to be in the Vanarama Premier. That's got to be our goal. And we know there's a lot of work to do. You know, we started off with 1 or 2 players start of the season, and we've got a lot of work to do. But yeah, all I can say to everybody, we'll get from me and Michael and the Brink Consortium our utmost, you know, enthusiasm and help. We've come a long way already, as you can see.
Yes, amazing the transition already.
Yeah, and I know you're going to come on to probably several questions on that. But yeah, and my background is in several businesses. So I started off in cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, and then I've invested in a lot of startup businesses. That's given me great skills in, you know, making businesses successful from the ground up, and that's not too dissimilar to what we've done here with Torquay, even though it's an established football club. You know, buying off the administrators and then trying to make it a profitable business and a business that can be sustainable. And that's sort of our aim. And I've heard me say previously that, you know, the reason why I invested really is because I love Tor Bay, not Torquay. And I don't think this Bay and even the supporters who come further afield can afford to lose this football club. And now it's up to the community to come together to support the football club. And they have. To be honest.
No, it's amazing. We've only just seen the start as well. I feel like we've only just seen the start of it. I've completely overlapped my own writing plan for this already. So we'll go into the next section with Clive. It's now yours. So we'll talk a little bit. We've gone through the business backgrounds and that kind of stuff. That's really good. Thank you both. Going into kind of like the beginning of the administration process. Clive, you can take that one away. Just a bit about, you know, how did that idea pop into the mind?
Yeah, I was wondering whether you two gents had any involvement with the former owner at all. I mean, we were sitting around sort of watching the house burn down, and obviously, from what you've both done since the Brink Consortium was founded, you know, clearly you've had the club in your hearts. Were there any discussions with Clark Osborne before it went belly up in February?
No, none whatsoever. And to this day, we've never spoken with Clark Osborne.
That is interesting, isn't it?
So just to maybe paint some pictures about what an administration process looks like. So at the point that Clark Osborne or his backers decided they were going to turn the tap off on the funding, and at the point you can't meet your costs, probably the next payroll, they summon the administrators and they effectively hand over the keys. It's a bit like surrendering. If you know you can't pay your mortgage and you hand over the keys to the building society or your bank and say, there you go, we're walking out the door. And that's effectively what happens in an administration. And so the administrator takes on all the obligations of the day-to-day running of the club. That's one thing, and obviously trying to save cost and try to keep the business going as a going concern. But then they try to run a sale process, and that's what they did. But throughout all of this, I only speak for myself. I don't know if Mark's ever spoken to Clark Osborne, but I've not exchanged a syllable with Clark Osborne either through his tenure or at the point where he walked away.
Interesting.
No, absolutely. And actually, the way this whole consortium came together, it's just feels right. Michael's done a hell of a lot of work bringing this together. I asked for the data room. I looked at the club, and it didn't look great. And I didn't feel that I would have enough myself with energy and everything else that was going on to be able to make a viable bid for the club. I had a meeting with Michael, and I've learned a lot about Michael over the past few months. And he's a very focused individual, been highly successful in business transactions. And he, not surprisingly, persuaded me to come in with him. And within about a week, there was about another 4 or 5 people who were interested in coming in, and we managed to put the whole thing together. And I don't think there's been a crossword between anyone in the consortium, because no one's in this for money. We haven't put any debt on the business or anything. We just want a successful football club on the field. And it sounds horrible to say it's a gift from us, but it's almost like it's a catalyst to move things forward for the fans and to give something back. And it feels great to be able to do that. And when I see what's happening over the past few weeks, it is fantastic. But, there were days when we bid and we weren't quite the preferred bidder. Yeah. And I'm at home sort of thinking, how comes we're not the preferred bidder?
Yeah, and that was a weird time, that.
Yeah, and we're thinking, but it's great news because we put in an excellent bid. And if we've lost, somebody's put in an incredible bid. And then when we found out the door was still open, obviously we were able to get it over the line quite quickly then. But yeah, we are, all the members of the consortium as well are winners in different ways, and we don't like losing. So hopefully we'll see that with the success in the club over the next, few years.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Can I just ask something there, Swanee? Just a couple of things listening to you there. 2 things I guess that I'm really thinking is, did you know each other before this, and the 6 of you know each other within the business world? And the second question I would ask is just not for specifics, obviously, but when you get your hands on the accounts and when you start to kind of seriously consider putting a bid together, what's the most alarming thing that you saw? It may well be financial, but in terms of the threat to the sheer existence of the club, what was the most frightening and worrying thing you saw as soon as you start to enter that process?
So I'll talk about myself, and Michael might have a different reflection from his point of view. But Matt Gorman got in touch with me. I know Matt from playing football with him. He said, look, there's this guy who's interested in buying Torquay United. Would you talk to him? It was over a weekend. And then this guy who I never knew before came up on my phone, texted me, said, can I chat with you? Can I have a chat with you? Can I have a chat? Got hold of him. We had a chat. Me and Michael never knew each other before. We got it. We got together within an hour. We said, let's do this. We sort of tentatively put some idea about, how much money we were going to put into it. The most alarming thing I think about the club, from my point of view, apart from the leakage of money, which is well documented, was the amount of work that would be needed to be done for this football club, and how far it had fallen. We realised often on the field how much work needed, and indeed Michael will probably tell you that when we spoke to the staff, how much work needed to be done in terms of giving them the momentum to move forward and belief. And I come back and I'm probably going to be criticised for a few things in my character, but one of my characteristics is I'm very, very ambitious. And I said to the staff on the first day, I said, imagine that day on a Sunday afternoon, and you're watching Match of the Day live in the FA Cup, and Ian Wright's pulling the ball out, and it's Manchester United versus Torquay United. And imagine that day. And I know we're a million miles from that particular time, but when you get momentum behind you in football,
it's for the whole football club, isn't it? We've said on this platform so many times, football club's all about momentum. It's not just results. It's from every single little role within the football club. If they're all on the same page, going in the right way, it will happen. And it's all about momentum. Obviously, it's been so plummeting for. So that's such. Look
at Luton, look at Ipswich, and clubs that have been in the lower leagues and then have come up. And momentum is everything. When it's going badly, momentum, you fall like a lead weight. But when you're doing really well and you've got momentum, it's almost like, oh my God, we played terrible. We managed to win that 2-0. I still can't believe that. And these are the type of things that we hope by breeding that confidence within that football, because it's not just a football club, it's a community place for everybody to go and have some fun at a weekend. But if we can bring that happiness to it and we can get that momentum behind it and make it a fortress for the whole of the Bay and clubs to come there. Because me and Michael went to the AGM, we're talking to other clubs, and they're not looking forward to coming to Torquay. They know we have a lot of support and they know we want to go up. We can't wait for the first game, really. But
it's fantastic.
But Clive, just to go back to your 2-part question. So Mark's painted some pictures how he and I got together. But it has to be said, there's quite a lot of people that were networking behind the scenes that brought the 6 of us ultimately together. The Trust, Mark mentioned it, but the Supporters Trust has played a key role here, because obviously they were putting their feelers out. People were coming to the Trust as the first port of call. To be fair, the club, and by which I mean George Edwards and Mel Heyman did send a couple of inquiries our way via our lawyers to say these guys have called up, they're potentially interested. There were a couple of people that contacted us that we didn't feel that we were aligned with. We wanted people that really, we wanted this to be a fan-led buyout.
Yeah.
And we felt really strongly about that because there were plenty of offers of money to us, but we didn't want to just to take money. We wanted to take, we wanted people participating in this project that had the club in its heart. And that was really key. The mix of skills that people could bringing money to the table is one thing. That wasn't the problem or the issue for us. The issue was what we wanted was people where we were completely aligned philosophically.
Yeah.
That we understand what it's like to be a Torquay fan, and had always the best interests and the long-term interests of the club at heart, and a group of individuals that could each bring something to the party, which then leads me to the second part of your question, Clive, which is what we shocked or what we surprised about. I'd say two things for me. The football budget bore no resemblance to the quality of the football that was produced.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that. I'm just going to leave that.
We could maybe have told you that without knowing what the budget was.
Leave that there. And the other thing was just how we thought about, given the loyalty of fans, given the kind of gates that we know that we can produce, even though we're at our lowest ebb in our 125-year history, we felt that the commercial side of the football club was dramatically underexploited.
Absolutely.
And then that
hugely.
And then that raises questions about how the club is run, and how they think about engaging with commercial sponsorship, how they think about the offer for hospitality, the offer in the boots and laces, the offer in the GULL'S nest, the match day experience, and everything else. And we felt really strongly that we were punching way below our weight.
Yes, 100%.
Right across the board, given the fan base that we have, and that we felt that we could do so much better by delivering a better value proposition that then fans, businesses, customers, etc., can buy into. And if you get that offer right, then the revenue will flow back in. And given what Mark says, we're not in this to make money out of it. We don't intend to take a penny out of this club. What we're trying to do is set it on a sustainable footing. All the while we want to be competitive on the pitch, and we want to be. We're not stupid. We need to get promoted out of the south. Basically, when you're in the National League, you're running a football league budget because it's so competitive.
Yeah.
And we know the numbers and the cash required to cash flow the business will dramatically higher hopefully next season. And that means that you need to raise your game off the field as well commercially. Yeah. And so I think that was the big why it was a shock. We also saw it as a massive opportunity, didn't we, Mark? The fact that we felt it was underexploited.
Yeah, and we've definitely already started that process on the sponsorship side. We've got commercial deals that are far better than last season. And, you know, we're going to keep doing that over the season, me and Michael and the other members of the consortium, to bring all those businesses into the club and see how we can support them and vice versa. You know, and ultimately, if we all come together, we've said earlier, then it will be successful. The other thing that's been noticeable, and I hear it all the time now from fans, and to be fair to Michael initiated this whole process with this, is the communication.
Yeah.
We've communicated from day one, good or bad, what we're doing, you know, and, you know, we've had to be careful about certain acquisitions or people that we've gone after in terms of managers and things like that. But we've been very honest with the fans in what we're trying to do, and that will continue with us. You know, we won't hide away from interviews or meetings, and we will try not to let any of the staff do that as well. We want to be open with the fans. You know, at the heart of it, we are fans. So
Yeah.
we want it to be successful. And I think the communication and the social media contact, you know, even about all the transfers and things like that, and doing it in different spots around Torquay to show what a beautiful place we live in, you know, they all come together, and it all really works.
Yeah, it just, everything you two have just said in the last 5-10 minutes is like a dream, honestly. Like, it just feels like everything we've been saying as fans, Paul, you were saying as fans as well. It just feels like it was such, not a sleeping giant, but at this level, it is a sleeping giant. It just feels like we're such a unique football club. When we did like the media bits, when it was all going on, and it was just like, this is such a unique football club. Torquay, it's well its way. It's, you know, it's by the sea. It's got everything about it. It's a football league club at heart. But if you just get it right, get the community re-engaged, you know, get people coming in already. We'll touch on Warnock a bit in a minute. Already, I know people going, Warnock's round, God. They're like Liverpool fans. They're any sort of fans. I'm going to go to Torquay. Make them their second club. Absolutely fine. Come along. And that's those sort of fans we need. And they get behind it. So they can watch Liverpool and then, or an Arsenal or not. And then they can have Torquay as their local team. There's so much scope down here. It's ridiculous. And that's what
it's
already
the difference.
Doing.
It's the difference from, you know, from having, you know, average support bases of 2.5, 2.8, or near the end of the season, 3.3, or being up to 4, 4.5. You know, let's make it more interesting, and let's put it out there to people and say, you know, I know you like to watch first class sport, but hey, you're a football lover. Don't go and watch Exeter Chiefs. Come to Playmore on a Saturday and cheer on your local side, and let's get you know what I mean. And that's
you're totally right.
I think
we've got to make them
questions.
We've got to make them feel. Just to pick up on that point from Mark, we've got to make them feel welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know, and throw the doors open in every sense of the word. And so, you know, when people, what we know, we've got this hardcore fans, right? We know who they are. There are about 1,800 of them that will turn up on a freezing cold, wet Tuesday night when we're in the bottom of the league or whatever division we're in, and they will come. But and we should never ever take that for granted. Yeah. But we also know, interesting stat, that we've been digging into data and everything else, is that 16,500 people have bought a home ticket to watch a Torquay United game in the last 3 years. 16,500. That is our potential addressable fan base.
Yeah, that is a very interesting.
And that's how we're thinking about that. So how do we turn 1,300, 1,400 season ticket holders into 1,800, 2,000, 2,500? Once you start getting, you only do that if you make people feel welcome, that the whole experience 100%, is good, and that they can relate to it. And once you start getting to that, that's when we can be really serious about budgeting towards being a football league club.
Yeah, totally with you.
And so the work that's on us now to improve that experience, engage the fans, where I think we've done a half decent job in the last 6 weeks since we've had the keys, or 7 weeks, what it is now. But I think obviously we need to produce on the pitch.
Yeah.
But everything is linked, right? It's a virtuous circle. The bigger the crowds, the better the players play. The bigger budgets we have, the better players we could bring in, etc.
That's amazing.
Michael, you've touched on what I was going to ask about that. Really, I watched your chairman's chat. Everything looks rosy at the moment. You've given Paul a budget for the season. What sort of gate was that based on? And do you think there is scope to extend it? You know, say we're fourth at Christmas. You know, is there a potential to give him more money, or are we focusing really on the sustainability and not?
So,
go on. Do you want to answer that, Michael?
I'd only just say, I'll just answer it straight, is that the gate budget was flatlined over last year. So that's just a shade under 2,400. So remember that we're firing up other revenue channels as well, hospitality, sponsorship, etc. But if you're asking about the gate, and the gate revenue obviously is a big chunk of the revenue pie, but we flatlined over last year on the premise that we feel that we can at least do as well as we did last year in attendances. Obviously, Mark is about to tell you we're going to do way better than that, and I would agree with him.
What I was going to say is the pool. One of the things that's been fascinating in the player recruitment has been the pool of Torquay. Players are coming to Torquay because they, as I said to you earlier, they want to play in front of 2,500, 3,000 fans. That first game of the season, I'm expecting 4,000 there, at least. I think that if we start winning, I think we can really move this forward.
Yeah.
Michael's explained a little bit about the flatlining, where we took the average of the attendances. We've also been able, without giving too much away, to do a lot better on the sponsorship deals than the original regime. And we're interested in taking that further. There will come a point where, let's say, for example, we got promoted and the revenue from the gate receipts with the sponsorship would satisfy the club for the wages that we're paying, perhaps within the Vanarama Premier. League-wise, we know that Torquay can only hold, 6,000? So therefore, we're not going to get the gate receipts that possibly we need to be able to go to the next stage in terms of if we want to get further through the Football League. But, that's a different question in terms of, are there other sponsorship ways? Are we going to have to stay a Division 2 club? Are we going to yo-yo between Division 1 and Division 2? But it's a nice problem to have maybe in the future. I think at the moment, our sustainable model is we've bought in players at a good price. We didn't discount anything in terms of a hybrid or how it was going to work. At the moment, we've got 2 part-time players. All the rest are full-time, which will help Paul to integrate all the team together with Neil. And in terms of moving forward, and being able to be sustainable, that's what the platform was. The platform was, we've got a football club, we're here to stay, we're not here to just stay for next season, we're here to stay for the next 10 years, and to do that we've got to stop the leakage at the club, and that's what we've managed to do.
I think that, just touching on recruitment, there's a few factors to recruitment. Paul is we haven't talked about Neil yet, and I'll come to Neil in a minute and how important he's been to the recruitment strategy. Paul has stood on the sidelines at our level for years, and he has seen all the talent that's available regionally, and has had a very clear idea of the makeup of his squad. And as he will tell you, yes, skill and ability, that's a given, as far as he's concerned, and we completely trust his judgment on that. But his character, he recruited on character. And he's recruited, as you can see the clubs he's come from, to sell the Torquay project and sell the vision that we've given him, to the players, and the fact, as Mark said, that they could play in front of 500 or 600 away fans, and 2,500 to 3,000 home fans.
Totally right.
Is enough to turn the heads of these young guys. There's another silver bullet we've got as well, which everyone knows. The GULL'S Lodge. So the guys that don't live locally, that we need to recruit from other parts of the country or even the region, we've got an 8-bedroom lodge, which, by the way, is now almost full. And, and so, but the whole setup, the training regime, and then there's the Neil factor. The Neil factor's massive.
It is.
And we've seen the effect that Neil's had in training. We've seen the fact that how he's the arm around the shoulder in a Neil Warnock conversation. These guys are 10 feet tall. After 45 seconds of a Neil interaction at training. It's extraordinary to watch. And so, but I think it's been really, really smart recruitment. And also the way that the Paul's thought about contract lengths. Guys that could do a job for us in the near term, guys that could do a job for us in the medium term. That's been really smart as well.
I love that. No, that's brilliant. Because a lot of the time with recruitment, you've hit the nail on the head. I feel like there's been a perfect balance of experienced players. There's a balance of players who could disappear for the National League South, if we're only here for a year, say that. And there's potential assets for the football club as well. With a lot of these young players, so it's such a nice balance, and you can tell it's been well thought through. Tom, going into the sort of tail end of the the takeover site. Any sort of questions about the kind of when you actually were like, right, we're the preferred bidder now?
Yeah, I'd just like to first of all say thank you very much, gents, for saving our football club, and for a complete breath of fresh air around the whole club and bringing pride back to the club. And I know you guys are going to do a fantastic job on that front, and we're all behind you all the way. So I just wanted to make sure I got that off my chest. I've lost, where was I now? I've lost myself.
And you need a moment, Tom. You're right.
Yeah. If I don't mind just rewinding a little bit, going back to the Leagues AGM that you attended. Now, obviously, we knew there was a deadline for the takeover to take place. Can you just describe to me how it felt trying to get the deal over the line? Obviously, it took a little bit of a while before that was completely finished. And then on that front, what goes on at a League AGM meeting? What's discussed? What happens there? And can you just talk about your immense pride at getting to that AGM deadline? And, you know, as you mentioned previously about, you know, clubs seem like they're going to be worried about coming to play more, which I really hope is the case. But just your thoughts on those points, if you wouldn't mind, gents.
Mark, do you want to paint some pictures about the AGM weekend we had? Because we quite enjoyed it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. First of all, you hit it on the nail when you said an immense pride sitting at the table and seeing Torquay United Football Club, AFC, and taking a photo of that and realizing that we were, you know, still alive. In fact, I wanted to steal the actual sign, and I wanted to give it to Michael. I wanted to give it to him, but unfortunately they took it away. But normal things that happen at AGMs, in terms of the first part of the day, talking about any rule changes, some of the debates that had gone up, why teams didn't get promoted, etc. Obviously, it's well publicised about that. Some of the ideas about postponements, some of the changes to the FA Cup, for example, and the reasons behind that, because of the scheduling, Europa League and Champions League fixtures for Premier League sides, etc. The afternoon, me and Michael did a little bit of schmoozing with other chairmen from other clubs, and actually, I was able to have a chat with the chairman of Bar City to try and get the Jordan Dyer deal over the line. So that was done there. And then in the evening, schmoozing with Truro as well, after we'd stolen Paul Watt.
Slightly awkward, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because they had all the clubs in alphabetical order, so you walk in this big auditorium and all the clubs. We're going, I wonder who we're sat next to. We walked in, and as soon as we saw Torquay United, Truro City, I'm like,
I was like, are they having a laugh with us? And then we realised, oh no, it's alphabetical. That's why we're in there. But we spoke to all the chairmen of all the different clubs. And it was you know, it was just fascinating, and looking forward to obviously playing each other, you know, and just being able to be part of that program. What they do show as well is they show all the videos of the promoted teams, and obviously they show all the players of the seasons, the highest goal scorers. And me and Michael were looking at it, and I think we both looked at each other with a bit of a grin to say, we better be on those videos next season. Because I was looking at him going, cool, it must be so good to go up there. And you know, when they were going up there and picking up trophies, there was like one person going up there or two people. And I said to Michael, Christ, we'll be having a coach going around Torquay. We'll be like going up there with everybody from the football club, whether it's groundsman through to everyone from the commercial team. Do you know what I mean? But it was a great day, and the immense proudness to represent Torquay, and for us to see that we are functioning and we're in the game, you know, to go up.
Yeah, no, amazing.
I think that's right. It was this whole journey's been a bit funny. You have certain moments during this whole process, but I have to say with Mark, it kind of hit me quite hard, and quite a moment when you walk into this auditorium and you see Torquay United there, and you think, oh my God, we're still alive, we're still here. And then Mark and I looked at each other. These are our seats. This is like we're
in charge.
And we're the custodians now. And that was quite the moment. Do you know what I mean? It all suddenly came to life, and but no, it's quite interesting. They talk about stuff like Howard Webb, the head of PGMOL, the PGMOL, the referees stuff. Talk about new rules that comes through, and they talked about standard of refereeing at our level, which obviously has become a bit of an issue because recruiting referees is really difficult because
I can imagine
who the hell would want to be a referee? But they also some practical stuff that how clubs at our level can apply for funding. So, for example, we're thinking at the moment when we're addressing the sustainability question is how to access funding and turning our floodlights to LEDs.
Yeah.
A, better on energy, but B, just a bit more sustainable. And so the Football Foundation would stand up and tell us all about the different types of funding and grants and match funding that's available. So from that perspective, it was, I mean, of course, we're new to football. So I filled a notebook full of tons of notes about stuff that, of course, most people who've been in football for a long time know about. And of course, we didn't. So it's an enormous learning curve. But the other, Mark, I don't know about you, but one of the other takeaways is super social, right? So it's a very late night. Let's put it that way. And there's a real kind of fraternal feeling amongst the community that, you know, we're all clubs at a certain level that all have our own challenges, and what happens on the pitch happens on the pitch. But there's a real camaraderie. And people were genuinely warm towards us and really welcomed us and were really curious as to know what happened. And I remember a conversation I had with bless him, the sole representative of Southend, and given all the stuff that they're going through at the moment. It's a real eye-opener, and there's a real, I think the conversations, there's a real empathy with everyone in the room, because it's tough. It's tough running football clubs at our level. And you're always looking over your shoulder, and you know, and everyone, to a man and a woman there, said, "We're so glad you're still here. Like, we can't imagine our league without you." So that's helpful.
And to be fair, like Michael said, all the other chairmen or representatives from the football club not only made us welcome, but you could tll the amount of sacrifices they've made for their football club as well. The first question they said to us, "Why are you doing this? Why are you involved in this lovely area of football and investment and all this kind of thing?" And the same thing. It's they love their local football club.
That's lovely. A lot of good teams. It's going to be a good league this season. I thought it's going to be a competitive league. A lot of sort of nice away trips. It's going to be an interesting league.
And we have to be careful what we said, because, you know, when people talk to you about Torquay and the fan base and everything else, oh, you should be playing in this league or that league, you know, my first reaction to that question is, you're correct, but we need to earn the right to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's where we went wrong last season.
And we won't take anyone for granted. We know it's going to be tough. We're not stupid, but, you know, we've got to get out there and we've got to dig in. We know the games where we dig in. We know games where we can play a bit of football. You know, and Paul's very good with his stats and understanding this league very well. So, that's sort of, good day.
I think that's right on. I get really uncomfortable and increasingly irritated by people who think we've got a God-given right to be back in the football league. Now, that is our stated intention. But the fact is, and the truth of the matter is that, you know, last year we were a mediocre team in the 6th tier of football. And so let's banish any pretensions that we might feel. We haven't been a football league club in a long time. We came close. We came a penalty away, or 2 disallowed referee decisions, mistakes away from being a football league club. But we've got to earn the right to be there.
Yeah, totally with you.
And, you know, we've got a battle on our hands just to get out of this division this season. And that is our laser-like focus right now, is that positioning ourselves for the best possible chance of getting out of this particular league we're in right now.
I'm sorry, because it's improved. Like, even from we were in the South 5-6 years ago, a lot of teams play a lot of good football now, where the National League still is a very good, consistent standards, but it's a bit more of a passing game, I felt at times last season, and teams are just running rings around us, as we all saw. So you're totally right. It's nice that we have to be. No, we are a National League South club right now. And
well, I don't know if you were at Buckland on Friday.
Yeah, I was.
So you might have noticed the ball spent most of the time on the deck.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we invested heavily in the pitch this year, because we need a good surface to play the kind of football we want to play at home to make us a fortress.
No. And even, it's a very start. You can even see there's a beginning of a well-coached team. I mean, literally pre-season is about getting minutes and not getting injured and getting, match sharp and match fitness. So I never look into results, but I mean, you could even see there was a start of something there, which is great to see at Buckland. And what a lovely day as well for working with Buckland. It's a great football club. Yeah. Such a nice way to start your pre-season, isn't it?
It's a travesty that they got rid of that. They didn't decide to go there.
Yeah,
for
we didn't do it
pre-season.
last year, didn't they? Yeah, because it was a lovely day.
Such a silly move on the club's behalf.
Yeah. We tried to do a lot of wrongs and make them right as part of that communication side. And I know that we didn't answer one of the questions that was put to us just now, actually. I was just thinking about it. Yeah, if we are there at Christmas and we're fighting, obviously we will look to try and strengthen it, maybe loan deals, or we'll look at the budget and see how well we're doing, based on attendances and where we are, or whether, we've got to invest further. But that's not out of the question. We're well aware of that. And one thing I would say, like Michael said about playing good football, and obviously we've had the pitch redone, etc. We're acutely aware as well, seasonally, and the teams that we're playing, we're going to have a different style of football with the teams and do a little bit of background work on, some our strengths or the strengths of the other side as well. Because at the end of the day, the main thing is, we want to be as successful and competitive.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like, there's going to be some games where actually we're going to have to win ugly, and teams will set up different. And as much as it's like we've got to respect it, also you can see why the way that players celebrate when they score against Torquay last season. For them, it's a big thing for a lot of these players. It's a big thing, and it's a big occasion. So sometimes they will not step up because we're professionals, but there is that slight mentality change. So it's all about managing that. And sort of, just managing that occasion. But I can already tell just from his interviews, Borton is such a well-trained in the psychology side of the game as well as the tactician side. And he gets the modern players, he gets the modern youngster, how like my generation, the player generations now kind of, we've changed, we don't cope with that as well, but we cope with this a bit better, but we don't cope well to this. And he understands that. And I think that's where some managers have gone a bit wrong with the last 5-6 years, where some methods might not work. So it's amazing to sort of hear that already.
Sam, we're not going to lose games for the want of trying. Put it that way. We're going to be a fit side. We're going to be a competitive side. If there's 2 6'7" forwards, it's highly likely that we're going to be playing against a side who are going to have the ball in the air. We need to be strong at the back. We're trying to be strong right the way through the core of the side. That means 4 strikers. That means competitive midfield who can hold the ball, who can tackle, get those first tackles in, and defenders where we're not going to have creative players or strikers walking through us. They need to be hit first of all in the first couple of minutes.
And that's how you manage occasions.
And
that's where all of that went wrong last season, really. And that's where we can learn and go forward. And that's why instantly, I mean, it's that Churro team. If you remember the Boxing Day game, I was so impressed with how they played against us. I mean, that gives me confidence already going into it. They've walked around us, really. So,
I can't say I fancied running up that bloody hill that he had them doing last week. No. I took one look at that and thought I don't fancy that. So I thought they will be fit, having seen that.
Yeah, but do you know what's really interesting about that hill run session that they did down at the Kerry Arms? That wasn't about fitness. It was about they set off in teams of 4.
Yeah.
They had a time limit to do the course. And the goal was the strong ones drag the weak ones across the line.
Yeah. So you brought your mate through as well.
You brought everyone through, and this was a teamwork exercise, not a fitness. Now the secondary benefit was, of course, sprinting up the steepest hill in Torquay is going to put power back into the legs, but that was a team spirit exercise.
I love that.
Where guys, you drag everyone, your 3 other colleagues, you drag them across the line in the time given. And that was what the point of that exercise was about. And that that vein runs right through the way that Paul thinks about management. Yes, he's got Mike there, and the team that run them all through training and all of that. But most of the conversations we have with Paul are all about mindset.
Yeah, no,
are all about mindset and creating an environment for the squad where they have every opportunity to perform to their maximum of their ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you've answered all our questions before you even asked them. Both of you, it's been brilliant. But just going forward,
just one area we've not covered. No, there's one area we've not covered, which I mean, just from a business perspective, I think what's clear, listening to everything, the interview that you did together, the chairman's chat last week was fascinating, just in terms of just the all the background stuff, but all the stuff that Mark was saying around actually now we're going for this. And it wasn't in a, what struck me, and of course I'm biased, but it wasn't in a, oh look at me, we're cocky kind of way, but it was in a passionate, I've just got such total belief in everything we're trying to do here that actually it's almost like it almost isn't in doubt. It's just total belief in what it is we're trying to do. And I think central to that was the way that the initial article came out, when it had been bought, was the comment around the creditors, which I thought was very interesting, because I don't think clubs always do that in terms of the payment, in terms of what's, again, that's all about the transparency and how they're doing it. So was just interesting kind of how that kind of conversation with the creditors and kind of why that time frame. And of course, how that is that with a mind of how that will then transcend into the local community kind of further forward. It's not a case of paying back and then they'll take the money and bugger off again. That actually once they've they've had that interaction with you guys, it might be a case of actually we're not necessarily turning our backs on you as whatever that business might be that's owed the money.
We want to do things the right way. And the creditor deals,
absolutely.
Already with people like Toll Chards and others, we want to make sure we carry through the requirements that we needed to do under the CBA. And we wanted to keep everyone on board where we could. And we wanted to do things right, even with our negotiations with Truro, with Paul Watton, even with our negotiations with other clubs we signed them. We don't want to be looked at as being, Torquay are coming in the scene. They think they can do this. We don't want people to come and for them. We don't want them to think it's an FA Cup final when they play us in a way. But treat every game on its merit and everything. So we wanted to do everything right by the clubs that we're dealing with and by our creditors as well. In terms of, I'm not, when I explain about my ambition, you can have ambition. And I think that you've got to lead from the front of the football club and make it very clear what our ambitions are. And I have no doubt, and I have the belief that the team that we're putting together, we will be successful. How quickly that is, something I can't guarantee, because with greatest respect, we've seen so many clubs who've bought the best players in the world and trying to get there on the football pitch, and it's taken time for it all to bed in. But you've got to have that with staffing, and I've known that through business, that you've got to inspire, you've got to believe, and you've got to realise that there's a great opportunity for everybody. And I firmly do believe that the current team that we're putting together on the playing side, with Paul and Neil and Mike and everything else, we are going to get it right. But it's how quickly that will happen. But you've got to lead from the front, and you've got to believe. You've got to be pragmatic. And yes, you can look back to where we were a few months ago and where we've come from. But the ambition is a Football League club. And how quickly we can do that, is open to debate. But I've always been very, very a confident person, rather than somebody who's being, if we're losing 4-0, I'd still come in and say, we've lost 4-0. We're not happy we've lost 4-0. We know where we've gone wrong. Tuesday, we put it right. It's as simple as that.
I think it's very important going forward. It's a football club. There will be days where it doesn't go well. As successful as any club will be. And I think this how the football club keeps going, and that attitude that relentlessness will get us where we need to be, definitely.
Has the lack of squad been a positive? Or has it made it harder? Is it positive in that you can bring a manager in, you can identify your manager, and then you can effectively, not quite a blank piece of paper, but not a long way short, and say, right, within the budget you've got, within what we've discussed, within the principles that we've hired you for, does it help you because pretty much you can bring in your own team, or does it make it harder because there's that much more work to do?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Go on, Mike, you go first.
I was going to say it's a double-edged sword for Paul, right? So he's like, so he could build a squad, exactly the entire squad. He inherited Austin, who obviously he knows, and he was very happy that Austin was on the books. But the rest, he could build that team with his own vision. That's a double-edged sword because there's no hiding place for Paul now.
No, it's all on him now.
Say, oh, I just inherited half the squad. They weren't my hires, and I wouldn't have hired them if I was in charge. So there's no hiding place. But Paul's not going to shy away from accountability on that. So Paul will tell you, and so will Neil, obviously, who's got vast experience, that trying to recruit a squad of 18 to 20 players in the space of 6 or 7 weeks is a really tall order. But they've been super focused on it. But so, Paul, might honestly give you a different answer to that question. I think it's a good thing. We've talked about a reset, right? Complete reset of the club, and that goes from the pitch too, because we all watched what happened last year. And so I think it's probably a good thing. Others may disagree.
Yeah, I think ideally a manager would like to have 50% of his team there, be able to get rid of people and show that he's got that control over the team, and then make the changes that he wants to make. To be fair to Paul and Neil, they've done a hell of a lot of work with the kind of players that they think can be integrated into the club quickly, and partnerships, which is obviously very important in terms of defense, midfield, and attack, etc. Even looking at bringing in our last 2 or 3 players that we want to bring in. We're looking at what are we short of, where do we need to go, what sort of pedigree have they got, are they going to fit into this club, where have they been before, all those kind of aspects. There's been quite a lot of work being done. I think one of the reasons why me and Michael were so, and to be honest, the consortium team was so focused on getting Paul in was, when we first met, as me and Michael, loved Neil Warnock, and Michael met Neil Warnock. And then the next man was Paul Watton. Yeah. Why? He knows Southwest football. Yeah. We're likely to support for Plymouth, people like that. He's he's an energetic manager. If he gets it right, he's going to go to higher levels. He just fit the pedigree that we were looking for. I felt that if I was to talk to 5,000 Torquay fans, I think 80 to 90% of them would say they don't look like they're up for the game. They don't look like they've got the bottle for it. I think you're not going to see that next season. We might see some irregular pattern of play because players haven't played for that long together, etc. But we will give 100%. There's been a lot of work by Paul in terms of players that he's known before. Neil's recommendations, Neil's involvement with getting deals over the line. For a young player, a Jordan Dyer or somebody else, and they hear, Neil Warnock, and he's there at training, and potentially where does your career go to with somebody like that around the club? It's very, very important. And Neil as a person as well, if you meet him, he's you might have seen him at the Princess Theatre, but he's a fantastic guy. He's done so much, and he is just a very, very nice fella, and I think he inspires, and he's got a lot of respect from people because he doesn't show off about what he's done. He's just a guy who wants to help the football club.
I was going to ask about Neil Warnock's involvement actually, and that working dynamic. So he's mentioned that he's not doing it on a full-time scale. He's doing it, not expecting any money or anything out of it. So in terms of Neil Warnock's sort of working role with Torquay United, so how often is he going to be at the club? Once we're right into pre-season now. So if you can, chaps, just his involvement in the club going forward until we hit, beginning of August.
So let's put it this way. We've had one pre-season game and Neil was at it. Yes. Our second pre-season game is on Wednesday. Guess what? Neil's going. Our last 3 training sessions, Neil Warnock's been there. So he said to me, right, is that I want to help Torquay. I need something to wean me off the day-to-day of football. Yeah. I'll get a divorce if I get another manager's job and I'm 75 and I can't afford a divorce. And my pitch to Neil on that now famous 2-hour train journey from Paddington to Totnes was 3/4 of it was was convincing Sharon to let Neil come and help us. And Neil has been really upfront with us in terms of, I won't be there, I can't be there for every game, and everything else. But the honest answer is, we don't know how often Neil's going to come to play.
I love that. Yeah, that's a nice agreement.
My hunch is that he's going to be at Playmore a lot more often than even he thought he might want to be.
Yeah.
And similarly with training, Paul tells me he speaks to Neil at least once a day. At least once a day. He's speaking a lot at the moment because Neil is really helping out on recruitment. We've got a few targets right now that we're working really hard. Well, Paul and Neil are working really hard day and night to secure. And Neil's got a big role to play there. So, but he's been extremely generous with his time.
Yeah, I think something that you said, Michael, which is quite obvious, you would have seen it at the Princess Theatre. I think it's something that Neil can't control because it's in his blood. And I think if we start to go, as we hope they do, then I think, you're going to see an awful lot of Neil. And it'll be a great buzz around the club. It's great. At the end of last season, it was lovely to see the fans asking for autographs and things like that. And, from the time that I've had with him, he looks like he's really, really enjoying it. So we need to make sure we create that culture for him that he's comfortable with. But I've just got a feeling, knowing Neil Warnock, from the TV more than anything else, it's in his blood, and I think he'll find it very, very difficult to not be.
Do you think he'll do a lot of the away games? Did you get a lot of the club representatives at the AGM mentioning Neil Warnock and seeing if he's going to come to the away games? Because I'm sure a lot of clubs, and that with respect to those clubs, of course, fairly smaller clubs than ourselves. I'm sure that would be a big draw for them if they knew that Neil Warnock was coming to their grounds.
That's good. That's a good question. Actually,
that is a good question.
I haven't. This hasn't come up. To be honest, Mark, I don't know if conversation you had. Neil came up a couple of times, mostly from the National League themselves, actually, that are very curious about the Neil involvement. I didn't get asked a lot about Neil, actually. And Mark, did you?
No, they knew. Obviously, the press and what had happened with Neil, and obviously heard things on TalkSport, etc. Again, I would come back to the other answer, which is I wouldn't be surprised if in the first few months, as the team is coming together, and we have a few away games, that he was there as well. I wouldn't be surprised. But equally, we have a precious, talented man there, and we don't need to nurture him, but we need to make sure that we create the correct environment for him to be comfortable with. And I think if we do that, and we're respectful enough, and almost let him do whatever he wants, because he's earned that respect, and this is a hobby for him, then I think we'll get the best out of him. And that's
100% agree with you.
I think what's interesting in the recruitment, and of course, time will tell on the success of the players, is that we had Lee Mantle on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about around that phase. And I always remember Paul Buckle saying at the time it was about the person. A lot of recruitment was about the person. And I mean, in Mantis' words, he said he can only remember kind of 3 or 4 arseholes that kind of Buckle signed at that time. And actually, straight away, you're like, he's a good guy. And you very much get that feeling straight away. One of the first things that Paul said in one of his interviews was actually, it's about the person. We'll work with the ability because we wouldn't sign them if they were rubbish. But actually, if they're a good person, they fit what we're trying to do as a club, then we want that person.
And being Southwest, kind of living in that and settling in that as well.
You didn't hear that a lot. You didn't hear that a lot previously. It was about, he's going to be good because of X, Y, Z. But actually, is he a good bloke? Yes, right. Well, we'll work with that because he's clearly a talented footballer as well.
And something that Michael mentioned earlier about the GULL'S Lodge, quite a distinctive place for them all to go to, make friendships. I went to the gym the other day. 8 of them are training in there. 6 of them were staying at the GULL'S Lodge. And I was saying, what are you doing? Watching the Euros and playing PlayStation and all that. And they were like, yeah. And also, you can see this camaraderie building. So that's lovely, as well to bring the team together as well.
Yeah.
You talked about recruiting arseholes. And it's really interesting. So, without naming any names, there's a player that Neil and Paul want to recruit, who's coming down on Wednesday. I think Mark might be asked to meet the player because no question about this player's ability. Absolutely no question about his ability. Potential marquee signing. The big concern they've got is he might be a tricky character, and if he's going to live in the lodge, he might screw with the dynamics, that really strong bonding that the team and the dynamics and the squad have already got, and that just tells you everything you need to know about how they're thinking about recruitment. And you know, we know, right, there were some issues in the dressing room with Torquay United with certain characters who will be remain nameless from last season, and how a bad apple can really spoil the barrel. And so it's really interesting for us. This is all education, right? How the football side thinks about these things. But recruiting the right characters, the right temperament that will gel with the team to bring out the best of the team, where they all want to win for each other, is really important.
Yeah, and when we did the signings of these players, you know, some came with parents, some came with friends. You know, you get a chance, or I had a chance to obviously talk to some of these players in more detail about their background, where they're from. And they've already a couple of characters. And actually, I was talking to Joe Lovell, our interim CEO. I was with him last night watching the football. And we were talking about a couple of characters, and he got the same impression as me with a couple of them. And I'm not going to name who those players are, but you know, in every sort of team, whether you work in a job or whatever environment, you have a couple of people who are just very good to bounce off, who are older than their years, probably been around, had disappointment and everything else. But a couple of those guys are already in the changing room, I can tell, and Joe could as well, straight away. They're going to be very useful characters around there. They can bring people down to earth.
You need them.
Great mates. You know, Friday night, guys, let's concentrate. We've got the game tomorrow. Like, and all, you know, that kind of environment. And again, that's great recruitment. And
I love nothing. There was nothing of that last year, was there? You could just see that. Unfortunately, those characters just weren't there. I don't think in the team.
Or they're not encouraged to come out as characters. I think, that's a very good point, because if you talk about like the Buckle era and all that, a lot of those players, I remember Nicholson's exit interview was like, we're all kind of at the same age, all young families, maybe all quite similar. And I look a lot of the past of a lot of these players, even though there's a few like more experienced ones you definitely need. There's also a lot of players who have done well, also haven't quite experienced why they want to be at one club, but have done well at this club, and they can use all that experiences to put it to Torquay. It's not many players who have just gone like straight up or straight down. It's just they've all had quite similar pathways. I think that's very important, because you learn as much from when you've done well as you do when things haven't quite hit their expectations, or you've had an injury, or we haven't quite gotten a team. So yeah, it's really interesting, like the patterns of the players we've signed. And going forward, I mean, you've answered so well, unless you've not got any more. Just pre-season, how important is those, well, all the games, but Plymouth and Exeter especially, from both like the gate side and as well as the football side, because I can't wait for them both. And going into the season, what is your sort of message to anyone going forward?
Mark, do you want to kick off?
All right. So pre-season's absolutely priority with the number of players obviously we signed, and getting a pattern of play, looking at different combinations. I think we within the club probably know the players that would probably, ideally, if they were fit, would start that first game, and with the players that are coming in. Gate receipts, obviously, and we want to have great fans there. Lots of attendance for our pre-season games, especially with the Plymouth and Exeter games. In terms of my hopes are that we start off well, and I'm convinced that we'll have over 4,000 on the first game of the season with Enfield. And if we can keep that momentum going, win that next away game, you know, things start to move and work in the right direction. My hopes are that obviously at the start of the season was to stop the leakage, was to get a competitive team up there, and was to make it a fun place to be around as a football club from a commercial basis and on the field. And I think we've already started that route, and that's going very well. So my aim as a chairman, would obviously be for us to get promoted this season. I don't want to put pressure on individuals or anything else. As I said to you, we've got to earn the right to do that. But, you know, with a little bit of luck and things working out well for us, good pre-season, getting a win on that first game would be fantastic to just give us that initiative and that catalyst for the season. So that would be my hope.
Nice. Love that.
And I think for me, I think that I want us to perform really well off the pitch in all of the areas as well. And you asked about much earlier about your decision to pay creditors in the way you're paying them at the speed that you're paying them. And that, to me, that's bringing a bit of integrity back to the club. And along with that comes honesty and transparency. I want us to perform really well commercially. I want us to up our offer to the casual supporter, to the season ticket holder, to the company that's buying hospitality, to the away visiting fans that love their day out at Torquay United. I want us to punch at our weight in terms of a really valuable and important community asset. And that goes through, I want all of our functions at the business club performing well. So everyone is proud of the job that they're doing at the club. We've kept all the staff at the club. We've repurposed, reorganized all the club functions.
Love that.
And to the point where the staff are seemingly enjoying what they're doing now because they've got a clear roadmap and clear job descriptions, and they've got goals and targets. We're giving them the tools to get the job done and getting out of their way largely to let them do it and putting in some leadership there. And so I want us to be able to perform really well, because that has a halo effect. That's a virtuous circle. Improve the experience, improve the engagement. That turns into bigger crowds. That turns into better performances. That means bigger budgets. That means progression. I just like this to see this reset of the club really come to life.
That's amazing. I think Clive's broken up a bit there. So we were talking about Southwest Internet before we come. Type in the chat, Clive.
Put it in the chat, Clive. No, I one thing. What I said to my oldest son, I said he knew what we were doing tonight, and I said, if you've got one question, what's your question? He's a massive kit fanatic. So the one question which I knew he'd say was, when can he get his hands on a new home shirt? Because it's bothering him now. So
that's a good question. I suspect that
it's about this time next week.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just looking at the calendar now.
Or Plymouth.
I suspect around the 23rd, 24th, 25th.
Okay, cool. I'll have to put him off another week or so then. Excellent, good. He just needed a date, so that's fine.
Before we get to Clive's question, can I just quickly, you're talking about all the help that we've had over the, everything that's gone on. The offer that Weymouth gave with the £5 donation to the Trust. Or I want to reference also what a great job the Trust and all the volunteers have done to help spruce up Playmore. It's a shame that I haven't had a chance to come down from Sussex and do that. But are we going to look to replicate that for Weymouth as a thank you? Because I think that would be quite a kind gesture if we, could make something like that happen. And also just a quick word on the season ticket update. I mean, obviously we've had over 1,300 now. And I think, this whole new era of Torquay United has inspired even me, who lives in Sussex, to buy a season ticket, even though it's not making any financial sense for me to do that. But you know what? I want to back this new consortium. I want to back the football club now. And I'm more than happy to do that and buy a season ticket, even if it means I'm probably be worse off financially. But that's how I feel about the football club. So just wanted your thoughts on those points.
That's a really, really good idea about Weymouth, by the way.
We've got them on Boxing Day, don't we? Away? Is it away? Boxing
Day? We play them over Christmas period and Easter period. We asked for that. So what happens at the National League as well, by the way, is you can try to pair up for key holiday dates. So we asked to pair with Weymouth and with Truro.
Truro weren't keen then, no.
No, we asked to pair with Truro and with Weymouth, and so we've got Truro and Weymouth and Truro and Weymouth.
Because they've changed it. It's not like Boxing Day and New Year's Day now, is it?
No, they split it. One festive fixture, one Easter fixture.
Yeah, I quite like that actually.
That is quite good for regional football. It completely makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, Michael, we met them, didn't we, at the AGM, and they're a smashing bunch, actually. Guys, so we should do something for them.
That's a good shout. Leave that with us. We'll come back on that. That's I really like that idea. Thank you. This is the whole point. It's like, this is our club. I mean that
I love it.
in the general sense.
I love it.
So if people have got ideas, like, talk to us. That's
fantastic.
That's a really good idea. And I think that's
I'm not just a pretty face.
And finally,
although of course the irony on that day, of course, is we then lost the point we got that day. Yeah, all that Weymouth did for us, we lost that point that we worked hard to earn anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And finally, of all the great questions, Clive's question was, and it is true, we all did wonder it. Do either of you know why the club owed money to the Northern Lubricants of Hartlepool?
I'll get back to you on that one. I presume they're on the creditors list, are they?
They were. Yeah. I was intrigued. Yeah.
Northern Lubricants of Hartlepool. Maybe it's the oil that the groundsman
uses. The oil or something with a groundsman or something on a lawnmower or something.
It'll be mundane, won't it?
I will come back with an answer on.
Welcome to the world of knowing Clive and his mind.
Yes, there's many dark corners. Can I have one more? Can I have one more?
Go for it.
You had the fan survey, didn't you? And you were delighted. You had 1,100 answers on that. What was the most ridiculous suggestion that you received from that?
Getting rid of that wall by the toilets.
Yeah, that's good.
No, don't start me on that wall by the toilets, Tom. Tonight's not the night.
I think, Michael, would you say on the survey, a lot of the feedback that we got were areas that we already knew there were issues with, food, surcharges, just things that we wanted to change straight away anyway. I'm just trying to think of the most stupidest one. I don't know. Do you remember what it is, Michael?
No, I honestly, I don't. I know this sounds a bit trite, but I don't remember any ridiculous. Remember some funny ones. Some funny ones were, can you bring back, apparently, I don't remember this. I don't know if anyone remembers this. A part of the halftime entertainment, apparently an ice cream company used to sponsor a cow.
Yeah, like as soon as you said that, I knew exactly.
That used to run across the halfway line, and there'd be 3 guys with 3 footballs. Yeah. And if you hit the cow once, you got like a month's supply of ice cream.
That was years
hit the cow
ago.
twice, you got a year's supply. And if you hit the cow 3 times with all 3 balls, you got a lifetime supply of ice cream. And someone said, can you bring that back? And I was thinking, actually, that sounds like quite good fun.
I don't remember.
Maybe the 2 chairmen could be the front and back of the cow.
I do remember that. Yeah, no, that's about 10 years ago, I think that was.
Yeah, Hell's Bells. Helen Chamberlain mentioned about it as well, didn't she?
Yeah, there you go. That's amazing. But there we are. No, thank you so much, you two, for giving up your time tonight. It's been lovely. And yeah, just here's to some. I can't wait. I just generally can't wait for the whole season. I know a lot of Torquay fans. I know you two probably feel like it as well. We've got our club back in the way we want it, and here's to a very successful and enjoyable future.
Bless you guys, and keep doing what you're doing. It's brilliant.
Thanks
you. A lot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Here's Hargreaves, chance for Torquay. Chris Hargreaves, the captain. He stays on side. Carlisle checks instead. He's looking for Benyon. Still.